Hello, welcome back. Matt Osborne here from MrLeica.com. This video will tell you all you need to know about the Voigtlander Skopar 35mm f2.5 lens. This is lens review number 12 of the 7 lenses in 7 days extended playlist series. I'll link the playlist at the end of this video. So in today's video, as I say, I'm going to cover the Voigtlander Skopar 35mm lens. I'm going to tell you all the facts you need to know about this lens, how it renders the pictures. I'll then show you example images with 3 digital Leica cameras. I'll show you example images with 3 different film cameras. And then if you wait to the very end, my bonus extra bit of information, I'll show you 2 different versions of the Skopar lens. One is a Leica M mount, one is a Leica thread mount. So grab a chair and let's get started. This lens is tiny. Okay, so as with all the lens videos that we've done, first things first, price. This lens has surprised me a little bit because I've checked the used price on eBay and the new price, and they seem to be almost identical. The used price seems to be around £400 from those lenses listed in Europe at the time of making this review, and the new price is £410. GBP. So if you click below this video, in the description I'll put links to eBay and Amazon, and then if you watch this video at a later date, hopefully there'll be some more lenses listed as used at a cheaper price, but also you'll be able to see the latest current new price as well. So do check those out. Okay, as I said, this lens is tiny. So in terms of weight, this lens only weighs 134 grams, which must be up there with one of my lightest lenses. In terms of size, as we've already mentioned, you can see this lens is small, but if you want to compare it to, say, a standard size 35mm lens, or see how small it is compared to, say, a small 50mm lens or a small 40mm lens, I'll link the small lenses video at the end of this video, so you can watch the small lenses video to see how this compares in size to other small lenses. Okay, in terms of the look of this lens, I would describe it as sharp, modern, reasonably good contrast, and reasonably good flare resistance. By reasonably good, I mean it is sharp enough for me wide open, and I've not noticed any flare issues to the point that I've never used a hood with this lens. The filter size of the Voigtlander Skopar is 39mm or E39, the same as the Leica lenses. So it's really nice, so you can kind of transfer your, I can show you, I have one here. You can transfer this. So here is a B&W yellow 39mm filter, which I use on the Leica lenses. But as you'll see, it also works perfectly on the Voigtlander lens. Having a common filter size of 39mm works really well when using multiple Leica lenses. So if you follow me on Instagram or Flickr, I don't think I've ever mentioned my Flickr and Instagram accounts. If you search MrLeica.com on Flickr or Instagram, you'll find me. The reason I'm telling you that is because the next thing I'm going to talk about is the use of this lens. The reason I just brought up social media is if you already follow me, you will probably know that I'm a 50mm man. 50mm normally works perfectly for me for my single subject portraits because it will give me a tight enough crop and a reasonably shallow depth of field, which is quite flattering for portraits. That brings me on to the uses of a 35mm lens. Now I know generally speaking people are 35mm shooters or 50mm shooters. I went through a period of maybe when my Leica M240 needed calibrating, and so I couldn't use my 50mm lenses. So I went to using the Voigtlander Skopar as my everyday lens on the Leica M240 for at least 6 months. I wrote a blog post about it. It's like one camera, one lens for ages. It doesn't say ages, it's not very helpful. I think it was less than a year, but more than 6 months. Because the problem I had was I had client bookings with weddings, so I couldn't send off my Leica M240 to get serviced and the rangefinder calibrated. So basically I had to do all my digital photos with the 35mm f2.5. It gave me enough depth at f4 to have sharp portraits at kind of normal portrait distance for me, which is normally within a meter of the model. So if you're still awake, with all that said, I have taken a lot of portraits with this lens, and it's actually one of my most used lenses. When I look back on Flickr, I can tell by how many photos I've taken with each lens as to how much I've used that lens. So as I say, using this on my M240, my only lens for about 6 months plus, it got a lot of use. Using a 35mm lens at f4 for a prolonged period, it totally changes the game in terms of, so if for example you use a fast 50mm such as the summer lux you've seen, with a fast 50mm 1.4 lens, you can pretty much take a photo of anything, it'll look nice. You can just knock the background out of focus by using a 1.4 aperture, getting close to the model on a 50mm, the model will be in focus, and it doesn't matter in the slightest what's behind the model because it's just going to be blur. That's an easy way to take pictures. If you want to kind of challenge yourself, is shoot to 35mm for portraits at f4. So now your background is in focus. Yes, there'll be some subject background separation if you get close enough to your subject with a 35mm, even at f4, but you can still kind of make out what the background is. So therefore you need to consider what is in the background. So suddenly you have to get a lot smarter because now you need to compose for the background subjects as well as your main subject in the foreground. So for me it was a totally different shooting experience. I guess the nearest I could probably compare it to is shooting maybe a Mamiya 7 or medium format cameras with less fast lenses where they're more like environmental portraits. So you see your subject, so if the back of the M6 is my photo frame, so the 50mm will have the model in the middle and there'll be very little in the background. With the 35mm, because you can't get as close with a Leica rangefinder camera, your model will now be here in the middle and you'll have space here and space here. This is often called environmental portraits because you're getting both the model in the middle and the environment on the outside. So when I went through my period of using the color Skopar at f4, I did a lot of speedlight photography, and you'll see those in the images which are coming up in a minute. Using this lens as it's designed for wide open at 2.5, which I would normally use, it is sharp enough wide open, and 2.5 is normally enough in kind of daylight conditions and a rangefinder camera to use available light only. Sorry, I went off topic slightly, but it might give you some food for thought on using a slower 35mm lens compared to a fast 50mm lens, as in my example. So uses for this lens, I would say environmental portraits. Because of the small size, this lens is really suited kind of a Leica travel photography, whether you put it on an M camera or something like a Leica CL and use the whole viewfinder area, or of course a Leica CL digital camera. It gives a really tiny setup and good resolution. If you're looking for a small, affordable, walkabout kind of everyday lens, you're not going to find much smaller than the color Skopar. Yes, it's not as fast as the Voigtlander Nocturne 35 1.4, which we've already reviewed. Again, see the playlist linked at the end if you've not seen that video yet. But for me, in most cases, f2.5 aperture is fast enough to use for an everyday lens, especially with the high ISO of modern cameras today. Okay, so if you're still with me, probably the bit you probably want to see more than anything, potentially, let me know in the comments. Do you prefer the detail or do you prefer the images? I'm assuming people prefer the photos than listening to me chat, but I could be wrong. So, photos. So here are some example photos taken with the Voigtlander Color Skopar 35mm f2.5. These first photos were shot when I first bought the lens on the Leica M9, which is obviously full frame Kodak CCD sensor, so it's going to have maybe a slightly more filmic look. Next we have some photos taken with the Leica M240. You may see that some of these photos have more depth or the lighting may look different, and that's because for many of these pictures I was using the lens at f4 with speedlights. These are a lot of these photos were shot in Ukraine on a road trip I did where I went through Hungary and Ukraine and met models along the way. Okay, and then more recently, these are photos shot with the Leica CL digital camera, obviously mirrorless camera, 1.5 crop. So now the 35mm becomes more like a 50mm. It lets me crop up much closer, so the view you're looking at is more like a 50mm lens on a standard, say like M240 or like M6 camera. Now for film photography, I've actually used this lens less for film than some of my other 35mm lenses. I think my most used lens for 35mm portraits is the Voigtlander Nocturne 35 1.4. Here are some examples of film images shot with the color Skopar 35mm. Some of them are shot with a Leica M2. You've got photos taken with a Voigtlander Bessa R3A. The review is coming for that very soon. I keep delaying it. And then finally, the last few photos, these are taken with a Barnack Leica, which is a Leica 3A, which are 1930 Leica camera. Now, as promised, I said at the start of this video that if you lasted until the end of the video, I would show you a different version of the Voigtlander colour Skopar. Here is another Voigtlander colour Skopar. If you can see it. It has the hood on, so it looks slightly larger. This camera is my Leica 3A 1930s Barnack Leica, and I've put a 35mm viewfinder on the top so I can use it with a 35mm lens. Those last few film photos that you saw were shot with this camera, this lens, and it's a nice small setup. If you take off this lens hood, you can then fit standard 39mm filters. So personally, I normally have this hood off and I use a filter. So what is the difference between the silver Voigtlander colour Skopar and the black Voigtlander colour Skopar? The black lens is like an M mount and the silver lens is like a thread mount or like a screw mount. So obviously with a Leica M6, it is a like M mount camera. So I use a like M mount lens like so. With the vintage Leica cameras, these are thread mount cameras, not M mount cameras. So this is the older kind of Mark 1 version that fits the thread mount cameras. In terms of image quality, to my eyes, they both seem pretty much identical. So if you're looking on eBay for this particular lens, it doesn't matter if you get like an M mount version or like a thread mount version. The only difference being if you get the thread mount lens, you'll need a small adapter to convert like a thread mount to like an M mount. If the lenses are the same price, I'd probably recommend getting the M mount. It's just one less adapter that you have to kind of worry about. Both versions of the Voigtlander colour Skopar 35mm focus as close as 0.7 meters, and they're both obviously f2.5 lenses. I highly recommend the Skopar 35mm if you're looking for a tiny kind of walkabout lens for your Leica system, or even a mirrorless camera such as a Sony, Fuji, Nikon Z, whatever. I've been really pleased with the lens, and it's kind of a lens that gets the job done and you don't need to worry. Reasons not to buy this lens is if you like kind of the bokeh type super shallow depth of field look, don't buy this lens because this is not a super shallow depth of field look bokeh machine. It's an f2.5 35mm. So yes, you can get subject background separation, but it's never going to be creamy blur in the background. If you use this lens yourself, let me know in the comments. It would be interesting to see how widespread it is, and let me know if you've got the LTM mount or the M mount. If you got some value from this video, please hit the like button below, and if you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button because I'm only kind of scratching the surface. There's so many more. I think I've done now 60 something videos, and I've probably got enough cameras and lenses I want to do to maybe do 400 plus videos before we even have to start kind of thinking more creatively. So there's a huge amount of information coming on this channel. Hopefully 2 to 3 videos a week if I can manage it. It's only going to get better, and I'm only going to get less awkward in front of the camera, which has got to be a good thing. If you enjoy Voigtlander lenses, click here to see the playlist, which already contains reviews for the 35mm 1.4, 35mm 1.2, 40mm 1.4 Voigtlanders, and then lots of nice Leica lenses as well. That's it. See you in the next one.